And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Now this may be the scariest Cthulhu I've ever seen. And this is, that's kind of freaky. Now this is a card from a game called Kingsport. Now Kingsport, let me show you the box here. It's actually called Kingsport Festival. And this box cover is very hard to read. I think that the graphic design on this box card isn't very well done. But I saw this at Passport Game Studios and I said, so what is this? And they said, well, essentially it's like Kingsburg with a horror theme. And my jaw just dropped. Kingsburg with a horror theme? Cool. And if you've never heard of Kingsburg before, that's okay. Let me explain to you how this game works and we'll talk about it. Kingsburg fans, if you're interested in how this differs, I'll mention that near the end of the video. Let's go. Okay, a lot of stuff all over the place here. This is the board players are going to be playing on. These are the elder gods and other associated beings on the outside of the board. There are decks of cards. And since there's a lot going on, let me tell you what you're trying to do. You're trying to, after 12 rounds, which is kept track with a marker down here at the bottom, get the most points. And points are tracked here on the outside of the board. Players have a track. There are two other tracks that players are going to keep track of. This is spell points. You're going to need these to cast different spells that occur in the game. There's destruction, death, and evil spells, just like there's destruction, death, and evil cubes that you're going to be trying to get as the game progresses. And then over here is your sanity. Your sanity is going to start at 10, and often you're going to lose sanity over the course of the game. If your sanity ever goes below 0, then you have to start losing victory points instead, so you have to keep an eye on that. Now there's a scenario card over here, and that scenario card will tell you how to set up the game. You can play a generic game, which is what I have set up now, but the scenario card will change rules for the game. Many scenario cards often come with a festival card also, which will give you some way of extra scoring at the end of the game. The scenario card will tell you where to put the different investigators on the track. For the generic game, we're going to put them on 3, 6, 9, and 12. So in turn 12, an investigator is going to come fight everybody, and you're going to have to fight him. Now, these investigators are drawn from random decks. You have 1, 2, 3, and 4, so they get harder as you go on. Each investigator has a strength. This one's between 1 and 3, while the fourth one is between a 4 and a 6 strength. There's also a deck of event cards, and 4 events are put together, 1 for each round. So each time we get to one of these markers, an investigator and an event are going to be revealed and dealt with. Each turn of the game, players are going to be rolling their 3 dice that they have. So let's say this is a 3-player game here, and green, yellow, and black roll their dice. The first thing you do is you compare the dice. So we add them together, and yellow here has 11, red and black has 12, and green has 15. Since yellow rolled the lowest amount on these dice, then yellow gets to go first. So yellow will go first, and whoever goes first will gain 2 sanity. Black goes second, since they have the second most, and they will gain 1 sanity. And then green will be going third. And then, again, if you play with 5 players. So this will be the turn order for this round. Then, in turn order, players are going to invoke the different beings around the board with some of their dice. Yellow gets to go first. So yellow has some choices here. Yellow can place their 3 die up here on this gentleman, whose name I forgot, but on the back it tells us, oh, Migo. Okay, so he can put a 3 on him. And once he puts that 3 on him, no one else can put a 3 on him. He could put the 5 here on this young man. Whose name actually is not a young man, Yithian, all right? Or he can put both 3s on the 6 down here, or he could put the 3 and the 5 on the 8, or he could take the 2 3s and the 5, add them together, and put them here, up here, on the 11, which is a very nasty-looking individual, and I'm sure this guy has a wonderful name too. Oh, Dagon. Yeah, of course, that guy's nasty, the fish god. Okay, So if you put out all your dice, or you put out one die, doesn't matter. It's the next person's turn, so then black would go and green would go. Remember, once you're on somebody, no one else can go there. And once it comes back to you, if you have any of your 3 dice left, you can put them somewhere else. If you have nowhere to put your dice, then you can put your dice up here on Dark Pharaoh, where they will give you a sanity point, or if you pay a resource of your choice, 3 sanity points. Once all the dice are out, you then will get resources from the different people where you put dice. I already mentioned what Pharaoh does. Then you can see this guy gives 1 of the purple cubes, which is evil. Number 2 gives 1 of the death cubes. Then number 3 gives you purple or black. This one gives you lose 1 sanity, and then you get a red cube, and you get a spell point. Over here, number 5, you get a victory point. Elder signs are victory points. You get a actual spell, and you get a spell point. But again, you lose 1 sanity. And you can see that they get more and more as you go, but you'll lose more sanity. This one gives you 2 spells, 3 spell points, and you can look at either the event card for this round or the investigator card. All the way over here till we get to the big numbers. You can see here that, look at that, 17 makes you lose 3 sanity, but you get 2 red cubes, 2 cubes of your choice, and 3 spell points. All the way up to 19, who simply gives you 5 cubes of your choice. Now, many of the cards will give you spell cards, and you just draw a spell card. There are 3 types of spell cards: evil, death, and destructions, and these cards will tell you exactly what phase to play them in. The evil spells often let you manipulate your dice. They'll add to the dice, change a die to a 6 or something like that, so you can get the higher things. The death spells help you when the investigator shows up. You can fight the investigators better. And destruction spells give you alternate ways to get points and or get more resources. After everyone has completed this and got the resources, then, in turn order again, each player can build on the board. Now, the first spot everyone has to build in is here on this. You notice that each of these buildings here, this happens to be the house, has a special ability. When you build here, which is free, by the way, you simply get a resource. You'll put a cube in there to show, one of your, discs in there to show that you control that area, and you get a resource. Now that you've built in the house, next turn, because you can only build 1 building per turn, you can go to any spot where you are connected to. I can go up to the ruins, which lets me re-roll my dice if they're greater than my sanity. I can go to the school, which every time I put a marker on a 3 or 4 level building, that's these awesome buildings on the outside, I get magic. Or I can build here on the Emporium, where I get +1 strength when I'm fighting the investigator if I spend a magic. Or I can just go over here to the club, where I get +2 strength whenever I'm fighting an investigator who's strength 3 or less. Or I can go here, which just gives me +1 strength. And then I can go out and go farther. Each of these buildings has a cost. You'll notice here that the dock costs 2 black cubes, 2 death cubes, and gives you 1 point, and also gives you that special ability. While if you go over here to this level 4 building, if you eventually get to there, and this is the police station, you get +1 strength, and you get a victory point every time you win the fight. Although this one costs 3 blacks, 2 reds, but gives you 4 victory points. So there's a lot of special abilities and a lot of things going around. Now, we then take the dice back and start another round. Unless it's an investigator phase, at that point, you first will draw the event, which is a random thing, could be good or bad. Here, in this instance, this is a Polaris, which lets each cultist, that's you by the way, you can remove one of your markers from a building to get the resources back that building's cost, but you have to give the points back. So you can blow up one of your buildings to get points back. It might be worth it. Then you will fight the investigators. We turn the investigator over and we look at his strength. Oh, this guy's easy. He's a 1, but look at his special ability. He's +2 against someone who has a marker on a level 3 building. So he could be a 3. So you're going to add up your strength on the board. And there's not many spots that give strength. But you'll look, this one gives 1 strength and such. And you might be able to play some death spells at this point, hopefully, that will give you more benefits against him. If you equal the investigator's strength, nothing happens. If you lose, you look at the card. In this case, you have to blow up one of your buildings. If you win, you get an evil cube. So sometimes the winning is really good, sometimes the losing is bad, sometimes it's not as big of a deal, but you always have to be careful, and that's why it's good sometimes to look at these ahead of time. After 12 rounds, the player with the most points is the winner of the game. Okay, I'm going to preface I'm going to say a few negative things about this, but I'm going to preface that by saying I think this game is great. Okay, a really good game. Interesting decisions, fun, very enjoyable. So, my minor criticisms though are this. First of all, know your audience. This game is very dark. You're a cultist being death and destruction and evil. And the artwork on these cards is very dark. The whole board is dark. It's a dark, 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 dark. So that may not be suitable for all audiences. So keep that in mind. And for those of you who like things like Kingsburg was light and fun, this is not quite so light and fun. So there's that. Secondly, the graphic design could have been better on these cards. When I showed you that one card in the video, it's like written, everything's dark and you're kind of having to look at things. Like, for example, these tiles that are on the board. It would have made more sense if they had just printed that on the board in a white box. That would have been easy to read instead of us constantly looking at tiles. I will grant you that you can pick the tile up and read it, but since it's so very important and these tiles do so much for you over the course of the game, I didn't mind that there wasn't any words on the front of these. It's usually very obvious what happens, even though on the back it tells you exactly what it does, and it also has a lot of background on all the different people involved. Like here I'm looking at Yog Sothoth here, who's the lurker at the threshold, and he's a very powerful guy, and it's pretty gross here, whatever it says, and the rule book's filled with that too. And that's great, although again that's more the dark theme. But again, just some of the graphic design choices, when you look at the board, it's very busy and hard to see everything. Those are my really only negative things about the game. Other than that, I really enjoy it. I love the fact that when you roll dice, you can choose put 1, 2, or 3 out. You know, you might want to take a few of the smaller ones, or you want to go get a bigger one, or someone blocked where you want it to go. And I really enjoyed these spell cards. The purple ones let you manipulate the dice, very enjoyable, but you want to have some of these black ones, because if a guy comes and makes you lose your biggest building, that could be a swingy thing on how you lose the game. And then the red ones are other ways to get points or resources. So some very interesting choices there, and interesting choices as the game progresses. The game is not very long. It looks long because there's 12 rounds, but you can roll the dice and you make decisions really quickly, and we go on, we build buildings, and so on and so forth. Very fun, good game. For those of you who like Kingsburg, you can see obviously there's some major differences here. First of all, they added a terror track, or sanity track, sorry, and that's really neat for a couple reasons. One, it means if you're always rolling well and getting these big cost things, you're going to run out of sanity, which means you're going to lose points. And if you roll low, you're going to have lots of sanity, so that helps balance the game out quite a bit. Secondly, the spell cards are really cool. They're a neat addition to the game and allow you to do a lot of neat things back and forth and give you some customization. Thirdly, instead of having different player boards, you simply have one big board. And so if I'm going for this big building here, this fourth building, let's see, let me find one of the really good buildings here, the museum. Every turn you get to draw a spell. Well, there's multiple ways I can get there. I can build this one, this one, this one, and this one, or I could build this one, and this one. There's different ways that you can build the buildings on the board. So everyone's building on the same board, but it's kind of like you have your own player boards. You're just not tied to the different tracks that were in Kingsburg. I enjoy that. So that plus the spells and the spell track, you got to keep your spell points high so you can actually cast your spells, because many of them require that. And then, if that gets boring, you have all these scenarios. Each scenario just changes the way the game plays. Here's one, if you don't have your marker on a sanatorium, when you gain 2 sanity, you get 1 less. And whoever has the least sanity loses a point each turn. So that's just a very different way to play the game. And I find that fascinating. That's just, it's interesting. And then you draw a random festival card. Each cultist at the end of the game gets 1 point for each marker on a level 3 building and 2 for those on a level 4 building. So it changes the kind of the focus of the game, which gives this game a lot of replayability. Fantastic. Highly recommend this game if you like horror, Arkham horror. Not the game, but the horror from the Arkham world. And I highly recommend this game if you like good, solid Euro games. The dice, it's great. Now, for me, the question is, would I keep this over Kingsburg? Because they're essentially the same thing. And I like Kingsburg. I'm trying to find Kingsburg on my shelves. I know it's here somewhere. All right, well, we'll find it some other time. So Kingsburg, though, has a very light and easy feeling, and I can bring it out to anybody. I wouldn't be able to bring this out to anyone, even though it's essentially just a streamlined, better form of the game. I don't know that I want to keep both of them, so I have to make the tough choice here. Kingsburg or Kingsport. At this point in time, I can't tell you which decision I'm making because it's tough. I'm going to have to think about this for a while. Because I like the Kingsburg lighter theme better a little bit, but this one is definitely the better gameplay. And having a spot to put your dice, no matter what happens, to get sanity back, is nice for those who get blocked out. Very good game. Highly recommend it. I think this one's a sleeper. I think a lot of people should be playing this. There's a lot of Cthulhu-themed games out there. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. This is one of the best.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.